After you finish listening to the story, don't forget to leave a comment about what you would have done in the character's place. Now, let's dive into the story. Stella was in the middle of a crucial project presentation in the company's state-of-the-art conference room. The room was filled with top executives, including John Harper, who had a vested interest in the project's success. As Stella began her presentation, John interrupted her almost immediately. "Stella, this is not what I expected. You've had weeks to prepare, and this is the best you could come up with." His voice was laced with disdain, and the room fell silent. Stella, taken aback but composed, responded, "Mr. Harper, I believe this solution addresses all the key issues we've discussed. If there's something specific you'd like me to revise, I'd be happy to do so." John's face turned red with anger. "Don't give me that nonsense. You've been slacking off, and it shows. I don't know why we even hired you in the first place. Maybe you're just not cut out for this kind of work." The room was stunned. Stella felt a mix of anger and humiliation but maintained her composure. "Mr. Harper, I assure you, I've put in my best effort. If there's a problem, I'd like to know so I can address it." John stood up, his voice booming. "The problem is you, Stella. You're not fit for this role. Maybe you should consider working somewhere more suitable for someone like you." The implication was clear, and the room was filled with an uncomfortable silence. Stella's colleagues looked down, avoiding eye contact, while John continued his tirade. Unbeknownst to John, Brock Thompson had been quietly observing the meeting from the back of the room. He had arrived early and decided to sit in on the presentation to get a feel for the company's operations. What he witnessed left him deeply disturbed. As John's outburst continued, Brock stood up, his presence immediately commanding attention. "John, that's enough," he said, his voice calm but firm. John turned around, surprised to see Brock. "Brock, I didn't realize you were here. This is an internal matter, and I'd appreciate it if you stayed out of it." Brock walked to the front of the room, his eyes locked on John. "This is not just an internal matter, John. What I just witnessed was unacceptable. Stella is one of your top engineers, and you're treating her with blatant disrespect. This kind of behavior has no place in any organization, let alone one that claims to value diversity and inclusion." John tried to interject, but Brock raised his hand to silence him. "I've seen enough. Stella, I apologize for what you've just experienced. You don't deserve to be treated this way." Stella nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and relief. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson." Brock turned back to John, his expression stern. "John, we need to have a serious conversation about the culture at Viridian Dynamics. This kind of behavior cannot continue." John, now visibly uncomfortable, tried to defend himself. "Brock, you don't understand. Stella has been underperforming, and I was just trying to push her to do better." Brock shook his head. "There's a difference between pushing someone to improve and outright disrespecting them. What you did was not leadership, it was bullying." The room was silent as Brock's words hung in the air. John, realizing the gravity of the situation, finally backed down. I'll take your feedback into consideration, Brock." Brock nodded. "See that you do. And Stella, if you ever feel like you're not being treated fairly, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly." With that, Brock left the room, leaving John and the rest of the executives to reflect on what had just transpired. The incident left a lasting impact on everyone present. Stella returned to her desk, her mind racing with thoughts about what had just happened. She felt a mix of emotions, anger, frustration, but also a glimmer of hope that things might change. John, on the other hand, was left to grapple with the consequences of his actions. He knew that Brock's influence was significant, and his words carried weight. He couldn't afford to lose Brock's support, both financially and reputationally. As for Brock, he was determined to ensure that Viridian Dynamics lived up to its promises of inclusivity and respect. He knew that one incident wouldn't change the culture overnight, but it was a start. The incident at Viridian Dynamics was just the beginning. As the days passed, the ripple effects of that fateful meeting would be felt throughout the company. Stella, John, and Brock would each have to navigate the challenges ahead, with their motivations and actions shaping the future of the company. But one thing was certain: the conversation about diversity, respect, and accountability was far from over. And as the story unfolded, it would leave everyone involved, and those watching from the sidelines, with much to think about. The morning after the incident, the atmosphere at Viridian Dynamics was tense. Employees whispered in the hallways, and the usual buzz of activity was replaced by an uneasy silence. Stella arrived at work early, determined to maintain her professionalism despite the turmoil she felt inside. As she settled at her desk, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was Brock Thompson. "Brock, Stella, I wanted to check in on you after yesterday. How are you holding up?" Stella hesitated before replying. "Stella, I'm managing, Mr. Thompson. Thank you for stepping in yesterday. It meant a lot." "Brock, please, call me Brock. And you don't have to thank me. What happened was unacceptable. I'd like to meet with you later today to discuss how we can move forward. Are you available at 3 p.m.? Stella agreed, feeling a mix of curiosity and apprehension. She wasn't sure what to expect from the meeting, but she knew it could be a turning point. At 3 p.m. sharp, Stella entered the sleek, modern conference room where Brock was waiting. He greeted her with a warm smile and gestured for her to sit. "Stella, thank you for coming," Brock began. "I wanted to talk to you about what happened yesterday and how we can ensure that something like this doesn't happen again." Stella nodded, her expression serious. "I appreciate that, Brock. It's been difficult, but I'm trying to focus on my work." Brock leaned forward, his tone earnest. "Stella, what you experienced was not just unprofessional, it was discriminatory. I've been in this industry long enough to know that these issues are often swept under the rug. But I believe in accountability, and I want to make sure that Viridian Dynamics is a place where everyone feels valued and respected." Stella felt a surge of hope but remained cautious. "That's easier said than done, especially when the behavior comes from the top." Brock nodded. "You're right. That's why I'm proposing a series of changes, starting with a formal investigation into John's conduct. I've already spoken to the board, and they've agreed to support this initiative." Stella's eyes widened in surprise. "That's a big step. But what if nothing comes of it? What if it's just for show?" Brock's expression was resolute. "I understand your skepticism, Stella. But I'm committed to seeing this through. If we find evidence of systemic issues, we'll address them head-on. And if John is unwilling to change, then we'll have to consider more drastic measures." Stella took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. "I want to believe that things can change, but it's hard to trust that they will." Brock smiled gently. "I don't expect you to trust me right away. But I hope my actions will speak louder than words. In the meantime, I want you to know that you have my full support. If you ever feel uncomfortable or unsafe, don't hesitate to reach out." Stella nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in a long while. "Thank you, Brock. I'll keep that in mind." Meanwhile, John Harper was in his office, grappling with the fallout from the incident. He had spent the morning fielding calls from concerned board members and trying to downplay the situation. But deep down, he knew that Brock's intervention had changed everything. As he sat at his desk, his phone buzzed with a message from Brock. "Brock, John, we need to talk. Meet me in the boardroom at 5 p.m. John's heart sank. He knew this conversation wouldn't be easy. At 5 p.m., John entered the boardroom to find Brock waiting, his expression unreadable. "Brock, what's this about?" John asked, trying to sound casual. Brock didn't mince words. "John, the incident with Stella was unacceptable. I've spoken to the board, and we've agreed to launch a formal investigation into your conduct." John's face turned red with anger. "You're overreacting, Brock. Stella was underperforming, and I was just trying to push her to do better." Brock's eyes narrowed. There's a difference between pushing someone to improve and outright disrespecting them. What you did was not leadership, it was bullying. And if we find evidence of systemic issues, we'll have to take appropriate action. John clenched his fists, trying to control his temper. You're making a mistake, Brock. I've built this company from the ground up. You can't just come in here and dictate how I run things. Brock's voice was calm but firm. This isn't about dictating, John. It's about accountability. If Iridian Dynamics is going to thrive, we need to ensure that everyone feels valued and respected. That starts at the top. John knew he was fighting a losing battle. Fine. Do what you have to do. But don't think this is the end of it. Brock nodded. I hope it's the beginning of a new chapter for this company. One where we can all be proud of the culture we've built. Over the next few weeks, the investigation into John's conduct unfolded. Interviews were conducted with employees at all levels, and the findings were damning. Multiple employees came forward with stories of discrimination and harassment, painting a picture of a toxic work environment that had been ignored for far too long. As the evidence mounted, the board faced a difficult decision. John had been the face of Iridian Dynamics for decades, but his behavior was no longer tenable. In a tense board meeting, the final decision was made. John Harper was to be removed as CEO, effective immediately. The announcement sent shockwaves through the company and the industry. John was furious, but there was nothing he could do. His reign was over, and the company he had built was now in the hands of those who sought to change it. With John gone, Brock took on a more active role in shaping the future of Iridian Dynamics. He appointed an interim CEO and initiated a series of reforms aimed at fostering a more inclusive and respectful work environment. She knew there was still a long way to go, but she was hopeful that real change was possible. With John Harper ousted, the board appointed Elena Martinez as the interim CEO of Iridian Dynamics. Elena was a seasoned executive with a reputation for turning around struggling companies. She had a no-nonsense attitude and a deep commitment to fostering inclusive work environments. Her appointment was met with cautious optimism by the employees. Elena's first order of business was to address the company-wide tension. She called an all-hands meeting where she stood before the employees, her presence commanding yet approachable. I know the past few weeks have been difficult, Elena began, her voice steady. But this is a new chapter for Iridian Dynamics. We have an opportunity to rebuild our culture, to create a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected. This won't happen overnight, but I'm committed to making it happen. The room was silent as employees absorbed her words. For many, it was the first time they felt heard. Stella Carter was appointed as the head of the newly formed Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. The task force was charged with identifying systemic issues within the company and implementing solutions to address them. Stella was both excited and nervous about the role. She knew the responsibility was immense, but she was determined to make a difference. Her first meeting with the task force was a mix of hope and skepticism. The team consisted of employees from various departments, each bringing their own experiences and perspectives. We are here to make real change, Stella said, addressing the group. This isn't just about checking boxes. It's about creating a culture where everyone can thrive. I need your honesty, your ideas, and your commitment. The team nodded, their expressions a mix of determination and uncertainty. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to take the first step. Brock Thompson continued to play a pivotal role in shaping the company's future. He worked closely with Elena and Stella, offering his support and guidance. His influence extended beyond Iridian Dynamics as he used his platform to advocate for diversity and inclusion in the tech industry. One evening, Brock invited Stella to dinner at a quiet, upscale restaurant. Over a meal, they discussed the progress being made and the challenges that lay ahead. Stella, I want you to know how much I admire your courage, Brock said, his tone sincere. What you've done, standing up for yourself and others, it's not easy. But it's necessary. Stella smiled, feeling a sense of validation. Thank you, Brock. It hasn't been easy, but I believe in what we are doing. I just hope we can make a lasting impact. Brock nodded. We will. Change takes time, but every step forward counts. And you're not alone in this. I'll be here every step of the way. The Diversity and Inclusion Task Force wasted no time in implementing their first initiatives. They introduced mandatory bias training for all employees, established a confidential reporting system for discrimination and harassment, and created mentorship programs to support underrepresented groups. The response was mixed. Some employees embraced the changes, while others resisted, feeling that the initiatives were unnecessary or even punitive. Stella and her team worked tirelessly to address concerns and build trust. One of the most impactful initiatives was the employee resource groups, which provided a platform for employees to connect, share experiences, and advocate for change. The ERGs quickly became a cornerstone of the company's new culture. Just as things seemed to be moving in the right direction, a new challenge emerged. A former employee, Mark Reynolds, who had been fired by John Harper years ago, came forward with allegations of racial discrimination. Mark's story gained traction on social media, and the media quickly picked it up. The allegations threatened to undo the progress Viridian Dynamics had made. Elena and Stella knew they had to address the situation head-on. Elena called an emergency meeting with the executive team and the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. We can't ignore this, she said, her tone urgent. We need to acknowledge the past and take responsibility for it. Only then can we move forward. Stella agreed. We should reach out to Mark and offer to hear his story. We need to show that we are committed to making things right, even if it means facing uncomfortable truths. The team worked quickly to draft a public statement acknowledging the allegations and committing to a thorough investigation. They also reached out to Mark, offering him a platform to share his experiences. Mark Reynolds agreed to meet with Stella and Elena. Over coffee, he shared his story of discrimination and the toll it had taken on his career and mental health. I loved working at Viridian Dynamics, Mark said, his voice heavy with emotion. But the discrimination I faced made it impossible to stay. I tried to speak up, but no one listened. I felt invisible. Stella listened intently, her heart breaking for Mark. I'm so sorry for what you went through, she said. We can't change the past, but we can make sure it doesn't happen again. Thank you for sharing your story. Elena nodded in agreement. Mark, we are committed to making Viridian Dynamics a better place. Your courage in coming forward is a crucial part of that process. The meeting with Mark was a turning point. Viridian Dynamics publicly apologized for the discrimination he had faced and announced a series of reparative measures, including financial compensation and an offer to reinstate him in a role of his choosing. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Employees and the public alike praised the company for taking responsibility and showing a genuine commitment to change. A year had passed since the tumultuous events that reshaped Viridian Dynamics. The company had undergone a transformation, both internally and in the eyes of the public. The initiatives led by Stella and supported by Elena and Brock had begun to bear fruit. The workplace culture was more inclusive and employees felt a renewed sense of purpose and belonging. To mark the anniversary of the new era, Viridian Dynamics hosted a company-wide event titled Celebrating Progress. A Year of Change. The event was held in the company's newly renovated atrium, filled with vibrant decorations and an atmosphere of hope and celebration. Elena Martinez took the stage, her presence as commanding as ever. A year ago, we faced a crisis that could have torn this company apart. But instead, we chose to come together, to listen, and to change. Today, we celebrate the progress we've made, but we also acknowledge that our work is far from over. The audience erupted in applause, their faces reflecting a mix of pride and determination. Stella Carter was next to speak. As she stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent, everyone eager to hear from the woman who had become a symbol of resilience and change. When I first joined Viridian Dynamics, I never imagined the journey we would take together, Stella began, her voice steady and heartfelt. I've seen the best and the worst of this company, and I've learned that real change starts with courage, the courage to speak up, to listen, and to act. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. We've made incredible strides, but we can't stop here. Diversity and inclusion aren't just initiatives, they are values that must guide everything we do. Let's continue to build a company where everyone, regardless of their background, can thrive. The applause was thunderous, and Stella felt a surge of emotion. She had come a long way from the woman who had faced discrimination in that conference room. Now, she was a leader, an advocate, and a beacon of hope. Brock Thompson also addressed the crowd, his words carrying the weight of his influence and commitment. Viridian Dynamics is a testament to what's possible when we choose to do the right thing, he said. But this isn't just about one company. It's about setting an example for the entire industry. Let's show the world that diversity and inclusion aren't just buzzwords, they are the foundation of success. His speech resonated deeply, inspiring everyone in the room to think beyond their own roles and consider the broader impact of their actions. After the event, Stella, Elena, and Brock gathered in a quiet corner of the atrium, reflecting on the journey they had undertaken together. I can't believe how far we've come, Stella said, her voice filled with gratitude. It's been a challenging year, but I'm so proud of what we've achieved. Elena smiled, her eyes reflecting a sense of accomplishment. We couldn't have done it without your leadership, Stella. You've been the heart of this transformation. Brock nodded in agreement. And this is just the beginning. The changes we've made here will ripple out, influencing other companies and industries. We've set a new standard, and it's up to us to uphold it. As the evening drew to a close, Stella looked out at the bustling atrium, filled with employees laughing, sharing stories, and celebrating their collective achievements. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that their efforts had made a real difference. But she also knew that the work was far from over. The journey toward true inclusivity and respect was ongoing, and there would always be new challenges to face. Yet, she felt confident that Viridian Dynamics was on the right path. The story of Viridian Dynamics became a case study in corporate responsibility and the power of collective action. Other companies looked to them as an example, and the initiatives they had implemented were adopted across the industry. Stella's leadership earned her numerous accolades, but she remained humble, always emphasizing the importance of teamwork and shared commitment. She continued to advocate for diversity and inclusion, using her platform to inspire others to take action. Elena Martinez's tenure as CEO was marked by a period of unprecedented growth and innovation. Under her leadership, Viridian Dynamics not only recovered from its past but also became a leader in ethical business practices. Brock Thompson's influence extended beyond Viridian Dynamics. He became a prominent advocate for systemic change in the tech industry, using his resources and platform to support initiatives that promoted diversity and inclusion. As the years passed, the legacy of that transformative year at Viridian Dynamics endured. The company became a symbol of what's possible when courage, commitment, and compassion guide decision-making. Stella, Elena, and Brock remained close, their bond forged through shared challenges and triumphs. They often reflected on their journey, reminding each other of the importance of staying true to their values. In the end, the story of Viridian Dynamics was not just about overcoming adversity, it was about creating a future where everyone had the opportunity to succeed. It was a story of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of change.